Hi, thank you, Juan, and good morning, everybody. Happy to be here and basically continue our regular updates on safety with COVID-19 vaccines. But I think now we are also in a position to share more with you what we learned over the last 2 years and how that impacts on overall pharmacovigilance. So on the next slide, I just capturing that the last 2 years have been very busy. 2020 with preparing for pharmacovigilance for the vaccines at that time, which was still under authorization. Then last year very intense, and we have not stopped this year. We have new strategies developed to tailor our existing pharmacovigilance approaches to this very specific situation of rapid deployment of new vaccines under a public health emergency situation. We had intensive work across the EU regulatory network, and as Martin has just explained, the international collaboration has helped us a lot to learn from each other, to leverage our own expertise, but also to get reassurance that regulators elsewhere come to similar conclusions. There has been engagement with the public at the level of the EMA Pandemic Task Force, and we also offered, in addition to regular communication and transparency, as well as COVID-19 specific web pages, we also offered specific safety updates on the vaccine products. We had 44 safety updates last year, which were all dedicated individually to the various vaccine products. And we're continuing so far with these safety updates, however, in a new format, which I will show in a second. And our head of pharmacovigilance participated in all the press conferences, and we had other public meetings as well as the regular updates here at these working parties. And with all these efforts, we identified some new risks in the post-authorization phase, and we were also able to give advice how to minimize these risks. On the next slide, I just quickly want to show you how our current format for safety update looks. We have decided this year to actually put all vaccines into one safety update. So and do that on a monthly basis, because we didn't see the need anymore to be able to react quickly on individual products. I mean, if there would be a need, we have other tools to update the public quickly, but the updates from PRAC outcomes mainly are now consolidated on a monthly basis in the week after PRAC, and cover all the 5 vaccines. Now on the next slide, you will see that how our database, so to say, is developing. So until basically for last year, we had the majority of cases for the BioNTech vaccine Comirnaty, and that also reflects is not the use, that was also the product which was mainly used. And when you can see on the next slide is that between January and April, in fact, the figures have not changed so much anymore. The relationships also between exposure and reporting has sort of reached some sort of, has consolidated. We also know that we got a lot of reports from patients. I think the whole experience has been, has boosted, so to say, the involvement of the general public in pharmacovigilance. On the next slide, we can, this is in fact what I just said. We got more than half of the reports came not from healthcare professionals, which is different from the reporting we have seen so far. Okay, so on the next slide, we'll see then what we actually could deliver. And at our last patient and healthcare professional working parties, you have actually seen this slide already. So we had a number of really advise, and it looks rather complex, but in the end it boils down to about 10 things vaccinees have to watch out for, either before they come forward for vaccination or once they have been vaccinated, in order to observe, and if any of these signs or symptoms would occur, then immediate medical attention should prevent any worsening of the symptoms or really adverse outcomes. So on the next slide, you will just see what we added between our last patient and healthcare professional working parties and today. And it has not been luckily so much anymore. We had some more information on capillary leak syndrome for Janssen vaccine and Spikevax. We didn't need to update this for Comirnaty. In April, we had, in fact, no updates apart from raising a signal for autoimmune hepatitis for Comirnaty and Spikevax, which is currently under evaluation. Well, sorry, it was under evaluation, and we could report that there is no evidence for causal relationship. And May was, in fact, the first safety update where we did not have to report anything new. But that doesn't mean it's yet completely quiet. On the next slide, you will see that we have a number of investigations ongoing. The first one is on short-lived menstrual disorders. We had previously looked into this and could not find robust evidence for such disorders, but we are continuing to look, and maybe some short-lived interruptions in the menstrual cycle may occur. We are looking into this and will report soon. Myocardial infarction is currently under investigation for Vaxzevria and Jacobden. That's the new name for the Janssen vaccine. Thrombosis and pulmonary embolism, we are continue to look into that for Vaxzevria, not to miss any news here, and corneal graft rejection for the 3 vaccines shown here is also under investigation. And as I said, our intense signaling and all procedures are going on. We are not stopping. I think on the next slide, that is now for Cosimo to take over. So Cosimo, please.
Thank you very much, Priya, and good morning, everybody. So in this slide, actually, what I'm following, carrying on the discussion about the safety on COVID-19 vaccines, the volume of reports, and also the rapid assessment of the safety concern. Here in this slide, we are trying to represent, where we started basically 2 years ago, in order to be able to monitor effectively the safety profile of such vaccines. Now, we didn't start from scratch, of course, because we had to take lessons learned from previous pandemics, and in terms of methodology and ability of performing signal detection on the H1N1 pandemics, we could actually test our methods on that pandemic in order to project the upcoming COVID-19 pandemics. And in this sense, we started from a COVID-19 vaccine monitoring preparedness plan in order to tackle all the critical points. One being the methodology, whether the methodology was able to pick up a signal with such a high volume of reports. The international collaboration in order to be able to share knowledge gained, but also confirm possible risks. And that was mentioned also by Martin. The ICMA played a crucial role in particular in area where there was more uncertainty, such as the pregnancy or the pediatric at that time, where an indication was not yet approved. So I can say that collaboration, which was unprecedented, was very, very successful. And of course, the engagement with the public was also very important to build trust, but also to promptly, effectively communicate new risks that were emerging in order to minimize them and to raise awareness. That was proven also quite successful based on a press conference we undertake and also the COVID-19 safety updates that Priya earlier on mentioned. So next slide. Yes. Apologies for that. So basically, essentially, in terms of methodology applied, but also looking at the all challenges we had to face, we tried to keep the momentum, in which meaning that we had to be able to go through rapid assessment, and there was a great opportunity to revise our tools and test new methodologies. You might have heard that normally the high volume of reports during a vaccination campaign will capture a lot of reports concerning coincidental events that normally occur in the general population. And the challenge here was really to assess the magnitude of such event, but also contextualize the high volume of reports we were receiving within the background of the population. So a technique called observed to expected analysis, in which we compared the cases we observed for a specific risk versus what we estimated as expected based on the coverage at that time for each vaccine, allowed us to not only identify new risks, but also to confirm signals. And this technology, if you like, was used all over the world by other jurisdictions. Data visualization was also very important to be able to focus on the relevant area for monitoring, and of course prioritization. We also had to face different challenges in terms of case definition, and the example of TTS, thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, was a very interesting one, a very important one, based on the fact that this was a clinical entity, but the system proved to be quite rapid in understanding this new syndrome. A European agency actually played a very, very important or leading role in these new syndromes, as then all other jurisdictions followed. But in particular, standardization and alignment with our jurisdiction in terms of case definition was really, really relevant. In other occasion, we managed to in such actually occasion, we managed to also implement very rapid assessment for procedures with the data-driven decision from PRAC, but also rapid implementation of the update of the product information. And as mentioned, the international collaboration with regulator played an important role, as well as channeling the communication with all stakeholders. Now, where are we now? So is the challenge over? I don't think so. I think we are planning to look into a little bit into the future and take into account, of course, the lesson learned also from the SARS-CoV-2 pandemics, but the effect of this high volume of reports in our databases is currently under monitoring in terms of understanding how we can prevent all of these reports will mask other adverse events in our databases. And we're also working in terms of research in employing new technology such as the NLP or the machine learning, which is very up to date nowadays. And this would help us in being able to process, identify cases much more quickly, basically, to prioritize also a review of the cases and ascertain a specific risk. And finally, of course, this is also a very good opportunity to refine our methodology based on what we learn and provide additional further guidance overall. And I think I can hand over again to Priya.
Yeah, thank you. And I just saw actually a comment from François in the chat box around the importance of other initiatives we've taken within the EU, the VAC4EU initiative, where we got all the background dates. And Cosimo just mentioned that we did observe to expected analysis in terms of the reported events, and the background data obviously is absolutely crucial for getting the expected events we would expect to occur in a population. who has not been vaccinated and also doesn't have COVID, obviously, versus the events occurring in vaccinated populations. So thank you very much, François, for pointing this out and acknowledging this great collaboration as well. Yeah, so I also want to add, I think Cosimo already, it was a bit swinging in his remarks. We are obviously not, I mean, all these 2 years we have been very, very busy with the COVID-19 vaccines and the therapeutics, but we have not lowered any effort for any other medicinal products. So normal pharmacovigilance is running also. Okay, I really want to reassure you on that, and we are learning from the new methodology we have developed for the COVID-19 vaccines to leverage this to the other products and maybe also improve methods here. And as Cosimo also, I think you said that very importantly around the masking. I mean, we have now much more data, but more data does not necessarily mean that it's getting easier, because you can also hide a lot of data. So we also need to look into using our increased data mass, so to say, most effectively. And what we are also learning is on the engagement part, where we had now strengthened engagement in the COVID-19 context, but we are learning from this how really important not only to maintain the public trust, but also to get the input from the general population is important. The collaboration is important. We have to look into the differences between under and over reporting. So it's not, we have been traditionally suffered from maybe not getting all reports submitted to the system. And now maybe we got also a lot of events which are not causally related submitted to the system, but it's not as black and white as such. We always knew that in some areas we will have a very exhaustive, good reporting. In other areas we may have underreporting and other over-reporting, and there's very much a dynamic, and it depends on the kind of events, it depends on the kind of products, the circumstances under which products are used. So this is an area we have to definitely explore more and learn from to not overlook anything. The fact-checking workshops with journalists have been really helping, I hope, for the public to understand what actually our methods and our data are. And we have been reflecting internally that we should have maybe had more of these events earlier on, but we did a lot on the engagement side. And we finally have now time that as work with the vaccines is now normalizing, although still intensive, that we can actually restart other engagement initiatives we had started before the pandemic, and I'm personally also very excited about that. So, and this is, I wanted to update you on that as well. We are looking currently into enhancing collaboration between PRAC and stakeholders in the area of risk minimization. So for all medicinal products, not specific to COVID-19. This includes that we've commissioned a study where we look into how clinical guidelines, therapeutic guidelines, integrate risk minimization measures. And we have selected 5 examples in major disease areas to study that. And we'll hope to have the results in 2024. So we are currently setting up study protocols with the university who has taken over this contract. We also will start a pilot next month at the level of PRAC for informal input from stakeholders on the implementability of risk minimization measures. So basically this is to support PRAC proactively in their decision-making on risk minimization measures by giving more time, in particular with those PRAC members who come from the patient and healthcare professional communities, to explore how what could be barriers and enablers for certain risk minimization measures, so to have a more informed decision making. And we are inviting also representatives from the GP initiative. EMA has taken the specific forum on the GPs, because we don't have prescribers at the moment involved in PRAC, and so we will have now prescribers also advising on the risk minimization measures, which I think is a huge added value. And we are closely working here with Ivana and Natalie on getting this all set up. And then we also want to inform you that we want to develop a reflection paper on digital support tools to risk minimization measures. The reflection paper we want to draft next year, but we are currently setting up a multi-stakeholder group. On that, the multi-stakeholder group will involve colleagues from, basically from the PRISMA group, so the PRAC. Then we will have EMA colleagues, obviously. There are industry representatives, and we are also asking for patient and healthcare professional representatives from these two working parties, and the written calls have already gone out. So just to remind you that this is all ongoing. We want by the end of this year to agree the themes and the table of contents, the structure of the reflection paper, but we want to draft the paper only next year. And just to remind everybody that your remarks about the need for digital tools have obviously are very, fundamental to this initiative. I remember Hildrun talking about isotretinoin and the younger patient population who is interested in getting digital support tools rather than paper in their hands. But also, we're also looking here for patients who have certain disabilities, like maybe eyesight or eyesight, for example, then to have maybe risk minimization tools which work in an audio way. I mean, there are ample utility, in fact, of digitalization of risk minimization, and we want to cover that. So I think I can stop here.
Yeah.